Hey everyone, so this video is going to be a little bit different. Today I want to talk about regulating the nervous system. So the reason why this is important is because if our nervous system is dysregulated, we have a much harder time being present with ourselves, understanding where our boundaries are, and following our own inner guidance and just like living a full life. Nervous system dysregulation, there's a lot of videos about it out there, about, fight or flight response, about the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system. I highly recommend doing your own research. There's a lot of information about regulating your system, about trauma, about different mental health conditions that can affect this. Please do your own research. This is just from my experience and what I've learned through my own journey from massive social anxiety and PTSD into regulation. So I wouldn't say I'm fully regulated right now. I am actively utilizing these tools again to re-regulate my system after a period of stress. So now I've had to use these tools multiple times in my life for different periods of intense stress. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I will forget what I used to do to make things better for myself. And then I have to remember and relearn them each time. And so this is partly a reminder to myself and partly me offering what I've gained and gathered over the years of trying to practice this. So I have ADD and PTSD and tend to experience a lot of social anxiety. So as you can imagine, with that combo, I can be pretty sensitive to stimuli and can get overwhelmed and get in my head and overthink quite a bit. So I'm both overthinking and can be very physically overstimulated or physically sensitive, as well as sensitive to other people's emotions and intentions and whatnot. So from that starting point, I've had to learn how to regulate myself. So, because otherwise I'm just, because that's my job. I'm the one responsible for myself. So let's see, a little overview about the nervous system. We have a couple branches, 2 branches of the nervous system I'm going to talk about, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is the part that is responsive to threat. So that can activate our fight or flight. It can pump adrenaline and cortisol through our body and turn off our digestive system, activate our muscles and our perception so that we're hyper aware of everything happening in our environment. It also makes us less creative, and it turns off or down our immune system and our body's regenerative cycles. So, because all the energy is focused on fighting, fleeing, or whatever, fawning or whatever. So then the parasympathetic is the part that is about resting and digesting and regenerating when our body feels safe, when the animal of our body feels safe. Then we can sleep well and digest all the food we're eating. It's time to rebuild our stores. Our cells start regenerating again. Our immune system starts working again and fighting off illness, because the energy is not in fighting and running away. It's really important to have both. Like, we need to be able to take action when necessary and not be too depleted to be able to take those actions. And we also need to be able to rest and recover. So I'm not a medical professional. This is just what I've learned through self-study and through my massage training. I'm only trained in massage. I'm not trained in any sort of diagnostic or mental health or anything like that. It's outside of my scope of practice, just putting that out there. So what I learned about with the nervous system is, what stuck out to me is about safety. right? So if our parasympathetic system needs safety to be activated, our body needs to feel safe enough for the lizard part of our brain, our limbic system, to decide that we're safe enough to start healing and resting. A lot of us in this world just live in a pretty chronic state of fight or flight. I know that I did for years and years at a time, and then had multiple rounds of that type of experience while I've been learning my lessons and going through my life. And when I've been able to re-regulate, for the periods of time that I've been able to re-regulate my system, I experience much more joy, much more peace, much more luck, good luck and synchronicities happen, because I'm listening to my body and myself, and I'm setting good, healthy boundaries for myself and with others, because I can pay attention enough to be able to experience that. So let's see, the first steps in building safety, because that's the most important part for being able to activate this system, right? The first steps in building safety is building trust with yourself. So deciding that you're going to be a safe person for yourself and choosing to commit to treating yourself as if you deserve safety and respect. That's the first thing. Now, that's kind of the hardest thing. It's okay if it takes a little while to get there and you just start practicing the techniques to start, that's fine. But that is something that will come through for the long term, for the duration. This part is about when you set your boundaries, how you treat yourself, maintaining a state of regulation, a state of peace within you. You have to commit to that if you want to see long-term results. So let's see. So developing safety. And then to do that, the first thing after you've committed to that is learning to listen to your body and give it what it needs. So for myself, I tend to get overstimulated really easily, and that makes my body feel unsafe, even if my mind doesn't realize it, because it's overwhelmed already and kind of confused. So building the safety, like one of the first things I'll do is try to make sure the clothes I'm wearing are comfortable. The stimulation of having uncomfortable clothes is really disruptive and irritating, and I think that a lot of people experience that without realizing it, because our brain will filter out information that it doesn't deem valuable or important. So, and yes, so even if you don't have like extra stimulation, like even if you don't have like sensory processing things, it's good to try and pay attention to what you would feel if you allowed yourself to feel what's going on. So like I can sense, like I can't have my watch too tight, and I have to have my bands not too tight. I have to have a certain amount of mobility in my clothing to be able to not be overwhelmed or not be, irritated by the stimulus. And it's subtle. It's something that we don't notice, but it's something that can be irritating under the surface. And then once we fix it, it's like all of a sudden, oh, that's one thing I didn't even realize it was annoying and bothering me that whole time. So, making sure my clothes are comfortable, making sure I've drinking enough water and I'm not dehydrated, making sure that I'm not hungry or craving something like protein or, vegetables or whatever. Sometimes I just need juice, like good quality juice. Sometimes I just need to drink some juice. Or eat a burger, and that makes me feel a million times better. Don't come after me for eating burgers. I'm gonna eat burgers. I like them. They make my body feel good, and I listen to that. So, so making sure my body's fed, making sure I'm not uncomfortable, making sure like I'm not cold or too hot, or making sure that I've been doing my hygiene. Like, did I shower recently? How uncomfortable am I in my hair? Is my hair dirty? Like, I showered today, but If my hair starts feeling dirty and grimy and getting tangled, then it's like extra things I have to think about because it's in my periphery. So doing those things. And then what else can we do to build safety? If you work a job that you hate, finding ways to find joy in it so that it's not quite so demeaning and demanding on your self-worth. Any sort of little bit of gratitude can change the perspective, like finding a plan, making sure you know why you're still working at that job or what you are gaining from being there. That can help your nervous system not be overwhelmed by the system that you're in. Change it if you can. If you can't, try and find ways to look at it differently. So in addition to adjusting these basic things, how we can sense those things is by becoming the observer. There's a lot of videos about being the observer also. I have a feeling this is blocking the mic. Okay. There's a lot of videos about being the observer also. So basically the idea is, like the saying, I am not my thoughts, right? I am not my body. I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. What am I if I'm not those things, right? So then you come into the state of observing the self. In a physical sense, when I am overthinking and overwhelmed and caught up in the moment and not being in the observer, I feel it in the front of my face. I feel my face tighten, feel my eyes squint. I feel like all this stuff is going on in the front that's not actually real. And so when I remember to feel that, I'll bring my awareness back into my head, like just step back. It's like this sense of like, this is all going on in the front of me. I'm just going to step back for a second. I'm just going to lean back and relax a little bit. And from a kinesthetic perspective, leaning back when you're in dynamic with a situation or another person is actually a power pose. It's receptive. It's being able to sit back and witness, and without being combative, right? So like if you have to lean forward, it's very aggressive in body language, but when you're leaning back, you're in a receptive state. Practicing those things can definitely be helpful. And also it's a good metaphor for what it feels like to bring yourself back into the observer from the mind. When we're in the observer state, we can say, okay, what do I feel now? How does my body feel now? How does my heart feel now? Do I feel comfortable with this person right now? What's weighing on my mind right now? And then we can take that information and choose what to do with it. Because we're in the observer state, we're not in reactivity. We're in choice. We're in the ability to choose how we want to respond. So from the observer state, we can take in the information we need about our current state. How am I feeling? What am I needing? What does that give me? How can I meet that need now? Is there anyone who can help me if I am having a hard time doing it by myself? Like maybe I need a day off and I need to call somebody to take over my shift so that I can really sleep, so that I can go and spend some time by myself somewhere and really process my thoughts, something like that. Do I need somebody else to cook dinner? Do I need to ask my partner or my kids to make dinner tonight so that I can take a shower and relax in the shower and not have to rush until the next day, Those little things help build trust. They help calm the nervous system. They help bring us into a state of ease and flow, so that when we're listening, we can take action, and it starts to retrain our body and retrain our system to know that, oh, I am safe. Oh, I am cared for. Okay, now I can relax. Now I can digest. Now I can heal. Now what happens, I feel like I'm talking super fast. Hopefully it's not too fast. But what can happen is if you've been in a chronic fight or flight state for a long time, and then you finally have the chance to relax, it can be intense seeing how tired we are. So you might have to sleep for months, like just not do anything after work and just sleep, order food in so that you can get enough rest. You might need to cry. You might get angry and need to go like exercise to get that energy out. You might decide that you need to change your life, your routine, or your work situation, or how you let certain people in and out of your space. Those things that we allowed to happen because we were dysregulated don't work anymore once we become re-regulated, once we are in a state of trust and safety. This is when it becomes important to learn how to express boundaries. And expressing our boundaries helps us stay regulated because it shows respect to ourselves, it protects our peace, and it helps other people understand what we need. And that is all a part of it. Like, co-regulation is real, regulating with other people is real, but we can talk about that next. But expressing boundaries, it took me a really, really long time to understand what boundaries were. I didn't understand them. I was really enmeshed in my surroundings, so I had a hard time differentiating myself from other people, and that included their feelings and their needs. So I would get overwhelmed with people's feelings because I felt them, because I didn't know my own. And so then I had a really hard time communicating because I didn't know my own feelings and I could feel their feelings. So then I just allowed things, or enabled things, or just put up with things that I shouldn't have, and didn't really allow me to create safety for myself, and didn't really allow space for us both to be individuals in these different circumstances. And that, I think, contributed greatly to my social anxiety, because especially if I was with more than one person, I was getting a lot of information from a lot of different sources, and I didn't know what to do with it. So understanding boundaries is basically just what is me and what is you, and what is the other. It's like just identification, definition is what our boundaries are. So when we set boundaries, there's other videos about boundaries too. If you're having a hard time, look it up. But what I learned is that boundaries are about you. They're not about the other. So if you're trying to set a boundary, or if someone's trying to set a boundary on you that has to do with, if someone's trying to set a boundary on you that has to do with what you're allowed to do, that's not a boundary, that's control. If you're trying to set a boundary on somebody else that tells them what they can and can't do, that's not a boundary, that's control. The boundary is about you. In my life, I need this. This is what is appropriate and acceptable for me. Are you willing to meet those requirements to be a part of my life? It's not the best way to say it, but are you willing to participate with that with me? And then people have the right to choose if they're going to or not, So, I don't allow violence in my home, in my space. I don't allow violence in my space. Sparring? Yes, you can spar. We can argue constructively and playfully, right? We can talk truth, even if it's uncomfortable. But are you going to be violent with me? No. Nope, definitely not. And it took me a long time to learn how to differentiate that and communicate it. But now in my life, I no longer accept and allow violence in my space. So that doesn't mean you can't be violent. That means you can't be violent around me in a way that impacts me, in a way that impacts my ability to connect with you. So if somebody wants to be violent and also wants to be a part of my life, then that's going to be very difficult for them, because I will not participate with people who are intentionally violent. Now, I don't have anything wrong with people who use like martial arts and fighting as a form of athleticism and competition as a form of self-growth. I don't see anything wrong with roughhousing and play. I don't see anything wrong with sparring and testing strength and playing. Like, it's all play. Once it comes out of play and goes into domination, it's no longer acceptable. So when I understood the difference, it opened me up to be able to explore and play more in the physical realm, and also to understand what isn't acceptable when the line is being crossed. And that's when I know that I need to communicate that boundary and remove myself, right? So now I've been able to protect myself because I know that, and also engage more fully in the joy of life, because I know I can roughhouse and I can shadow box and I can arm wrestle, and it's all totally great, and it's not the same thing as like violence. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things like that. So understanding the difference between what's about you and what's about the other, understanding what you can control and what you can't control. It's like, you can't actually control other people. You can tell them, if you do this, then, you know, I'm gonna blah, blah, blah. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. People are gonna do what they're gonna do. And if you have to like suppress somebody's soul to get them to be in your life, then I don't know why you want them in your life that bad. And vice versa. Like, don't let other people try and suppress you and shape you into something that they want just so that they can feel comfortable. That's their job, not yours. Anyway, so that's boundaries. There's more information about boundaries. That's a really, short little thing about it, but definitely do your own research, understand yourself. The research should mostly be in self-inquiry. Research all these definitions and stuff, but the way to really know what you need and how you want to live your life is through self-inquiry. Take time to get into your body, take time to get into your heart and what makes you feel lit up, what makes you feel joyful. Write yourself a list of all the things that make you feel full and alive and make you feel rested. And you can even, if you like lists like I do, you can even write a couple different lists, like the things that I like to do when I'm being quiet versus the things I like to do that are active. And the things I like to do with other people versus by myself. Like, some of those things cross over and some of them don't. And just come up with what makes you happy and then follow that. And then as you practice, really feel into, is this working? Is there more here? What else can I do? And like refine it for yourself. Let yourself follow the feeling of peace and freedom and joy. Allow yourself to dabble in what it feels like to be activated in fight or flight without putting yourself at risk. There's certain amounts of stress that are important. Like, we need stress to be able to grow. We need discomfort to be able to grow. We need to, if you want to work out, you got to push through the pain. You got to push through the exhaustion. You got to push through the limits that we set for ourselves in our brain, right? If you want to learn a skill, you got to push through the discomfort of being bad at it. And so it's important to do things that are difficult. It's important to push through pain. And at the same time, we do not need to push past your threshold consistently. Like, there's no reason to push past the threshold of appropriate and healing and growth into destruction and deterioration. Now, you don't need to push past that, and it will take a while to figure out where that is. And even if you're like experienced and understand yourself really well, it's difficult sometimes, and it's easy to like go back and forth into it a little bit, like, oh, that one was a little bit too much. And that's when you come back and got to apologize to either yourself or the other person, or just like recognize it's like, that was too much. I'm going to back off and try it a little differently. Which is self-accountability. Taking accountability for yourself is a huge thing about regulating your system and about being able to trust yourself and being able to grow and move forward. So self-accountability just means like you're taking responsibility for your part in any situation. Your part and responsibility, whatever that is. So in the example about allowing violence, right? So self-accountability would be me saying like something like, in the past I have allowed that because I didn't understand, and now I understand that. So if someone wants to be violent with me, I immediately walk away and Now, in the past, I may have allowed someone else to be violent with me, and that was wrong of me. Because I taught them that it was okay to treat me that way by allowing it and by not standing up for myself. And in doing so, I helped enforce that within them, that it's appropriate to treat other people that way. And although they were violent and that's not acceptable, regardless of that, my responsibility is to speak up for myself, speak up for what's right, and to take action when I need to by either removing myself from a situation or getting help. So getting help in removing the situation. So do you understand? Like, I hope that's clear. Yeah, I hope that's clear. Accountability is one of the biggest things, and taking accountability for our impact both in our own lives and in other people's lives, is huge. I kind of want to tell a little story about accountability and honesty. I think there are times, maybe I don't want to tell a story about it, but maybe I will. We'll find out what comes out of my mouth. It's just all coming out. So, I think there are times when we can use language to harm people to harm people under the guise of honesty and accountability and positive intention. So, yes, it is important to be honest about how you feel and what you need. No, it is not important to be nitpicky and detail-oriented with other people about how they are or are not meeting those needs. So, can you be graceful in situations where people are doing their best but are imperfect? Can you speak truth about what is great and be selective about criticism? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it helpful? If your criticism or your statements aren't necessary, kind, or helpful, then maybe keep your mouth shut. Maybe be accountable with yourself and your impact by choosing how you use your words carefully with other people. Okay, so, and that's the same thing as with ourselves. Is this behavior or this action helpful, kind, or honest? Is it actually of service, or am I just creating situations where I'm causing more harm to myself by trying too hard? I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm done. Okay, I'm getting a little lost. I'm gonna go finish what I was doing with my chores for the day. I hope you're having a great day. I hope that's helpful in any sort of way. I'm sure there's things in there that are not the most clear. If you'd like any sort of clarity or have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. I can make a follow-up video or answer you directly. And yeah, I don't know. Just felt like sharing that today. Take good care of yourself. You deserve it. And then once we're taking good care of ourselves, then we can come up with better solutions for the world around us. We're calm and peaceful and healthy and happy, as persons, as individual persons, then we can come together and create better solutions. You know? And if we're taking accountability for what we will and will not accept in our own lives, and we have solid boundaries, and we, you know, do what we need to do, we speak up for truth and for goodness and justice, then I feel like we'll be able to come up with better options, better solutions, better systems, you know, better ways of communicating and doing all this stuff together. And I think we'll be able to make a difference, little at a time, little by little. Super important. That's how it's done. Anyway, take care. I love you. Bye.